This week on Head to Head, The Last Jedi is not Rey.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So we are getting closer to doing our Master and Apprentice book review show, are we not?
Yes, sir.
All right. So you got about how many pages did you say you were?
Probably guessing like around 60.
All right. So you're about 60 pages away. So maybe let's just say in a couple of weeks, we could do our whole Master and Apprentice review that we've been promising you guys. And as I told you guys last week, I'm actually halfway through Thrawn Alliances, which is, well, it would be actually lying to say I'm halfway through it, but I'm getting to be halfway through it. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I got to say, man, it's a lot of people complain about the whole Thrawn, the original one.
Yeah.
It's like I was saying on last week's show, too, when I was talking about the whole, basically what's going to be this trilogy, is that they're pretty much doing this whole thing now where the first novel was kind of like talking about Thrawn's origins in the Empire. Like how he got to be in the Empire, how he got to rise up in the Empire. And even though it was a slower moving book, I actually thought it was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And it captured my attention. And, you got to understand that it's like I also said that Thrawn is kind of like the Sherlock Holmes of, this universe. And he's essentially a very methodical, calculating, strategic kind of a person. So naturally, the book is going to reflect that in the writing style. Alliances, on the other hand, because it actually goes back and forth between Thrawn's adventure in the present with Darth Vader, and then it flashes back to his adventure with Anakin Skywalker, and how they actually had to go to the same planet, and it was sort of like how it was different. Mm-hmm. And it's the storyline's actually good, and then also this juxtaposition between Thrawn's relationship with Anakin versus his relationship with Vader. And, of course, Vader remembers Thrawn. It's really, really, really cool. I mean, I highly recommend that. And I'll probably end up, doing a blog very similar to when my blog goes live on after we do our review. Probably do one on Thrawn Alliances as well. So, I mean, for all you guys out there that, haven't had a chance, because in a couple of days, we're going to have the third book of the Thrawn trilogy, which is going to be called, I believe, Thrawn Betrayal.
Okay.
So that's going to be a really cool thing. And, of course, we do the whole Amazon affiliate thing, so, to help support our show. So we'll have links to all this stuff in the show notes. But what are you thinking of Master and Apprentice so far? I know we got the review to do, but
yeah, I'm not revealing anything right now. But so far, it's awesome. It's a really awesome book, and it's getting really in depth into exactly what I hoped it would, as far as the relationship between Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. I'm really can't say anything, but I just really I just really love it, man. Just because a lot of people have been clamoring for this whole Kenobi thing. And quite frankly, I was actually kind of having a conversation with somebody about Star Wars, and we were talking about, who's telling what story, as far as like an original trilogy is coming from the droid's viewpoint. And then I think I would say that the prequel trilogy is more told from the viewpoint of Obi-Wan. So, and I think that's why I feel like we really don't need an Obi-Wan thing, because we kind of really know him already. But in this book, though, you really do get to see kind of how his maturation, grows with Qui-Gon. So I'm going to just say that for now. And
yeah, well, that's cool. We don't have to talk too much about it. Yeah. In fact, let's just go to the Cantina.
All right,
we'll go to the Cantina, and we'll get our drinks, and we'll talk about some stuff. Looks like we got 3 really good topics for you guys this week.
Yeah, so I just saw that Star Wars Resistance Season 1 will be released on DVD, and that will be coming out August 20th. So,
did you see it?
No, I haven't seen it, and that's why I was like, ooh, cool, I can just watch it all at once.
Yeah, I saw the whole thing.
Okay.
I finally caught up to it and saw it. And in a lot of ways, it kind of mirrored Rebels. I mean, granted, it stayed more of a kids-themed show. Mm-hmm. But it really is interesting enough for adults to really latch onto and to get something out of. I mean, it's not, just a bunch of like, dare I say like Jar Jar style humor or something,
Right.
it's, or like, just like little kid type humor or, like overbearing messages.
Yeah.
The whole moral of the story thing. I mean, it starts out a little bit more, let's just say kid friendly. But then it actually goes further and further, and there's one scene where it actually bumps up against The Force Awakens, where the main character in there is, he's from Hosnian Prime. So he's actually watching Hux's speech on television.
Oh, wow.
And then he sees his planet getting destroyed.
Yikes.
So it does get a little bit dark, and there's some really, really cool plots in there. So, I mean, I think that it ended up being kind of a surprise. It's definitely more for kids, but it's actually a really good show. Like, I would recommend Star Wars fans seeing it. Now, do you really need to see this show in order to get more out of the canon or whatever? Not really, but it does enrich it to a big degree because you get some stuff with Poe in there, and you get...
Yeah.
Some other, how people are always talking about, oh, I wish Star Wars would expand the universe and not deal with the same old characters. Well, here's a shot. I mean, there's pretty much almost all new characters in this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm really anxious to see it. And that way I can kind of binge watch it all at once and kind of really take things in full scope and whatnot. I think it's already out on digital HD digital format already.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, but the DVD comes out August 20th.
Well, and you also, I mean, I'm sure you're going to sign up for Disney Plus, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because I gotta watch The Mandalorian.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure it might make its way on there. Who knows?
Yeah, probably will. Yep.
So I mean, that'll be cool. All right, what do we got next? That was quick.
Yeah. Well,
check you off the list.
Thank you. So next, Star Wars actually released a new visual dictionary for The Rise of Skywalker. And on the front of it, it has one of the members of the Knights of Ren. And I guess it kind of starts to go in a bit in detail about who they are, some of the weaponry that they have. One has like a vibro, like scythe type weapon.
They basically, I mean, from everything that I've read about it, it's like they're different. They all got like different outfits. They got, some different things going. So yeah, I mean,
they kind of look like mercenaries, basically.
They do. And I mean, I really hope I think this actually confirms, honestly, that we're going to really learn a lot about them this time.
Yeah, especially since they're kind of featuring them especially on the cover of it.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're actually on the cover, so that's kind of cool. I mean, so far, it looks like The Rise of Skywalker is going to deliver on some of the promises and some of the hopes that the fans have, because one of the big things, as you know, was the Knights of Ren.
Yeah.
The Last Jedi didn't really talk about them too much, and it was like Snoke seemed to make kind of a big deal about them in The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably they're the ones that helped Kylo destroy the Jedi Temple that Luke was rebuilding.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to see who these guys are.
Yeah, who they are, what's their purpose, and, of course, their names, if they have any, or...
Well, because that's the other thing, too. I mean, this is something that I don't think a lot of people really think about. But, how did Kylo get his name? I mean, his name's Ben Solo.
Yeah.
What does Kylo mean, and what does Ren mean?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's
why that?
That's one of the main things that I hope, we kind of find out. And I'm glad you brought that up. And that's, in the visual dictionary, it's going to give you some cool things. And of course, it's not really going to give you the story, but it's going to kind of...
Well, you got one or the other. I used to get all those things, like back in, the old days when it was just the prequels and, even just the original trilogy, really. After Timothy Zahn came out with his trilogy of books that ironically featured Thrawn, and it reignited interest in the entire series, they started to actually come out with all these companion books. Trying to think, it was basically like almost like the visual dictionaries, but it was called something else,
like an encyclopedia or something like that.
Yeah, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's basically like it's like
that's kind of how mine is.
They called it something though. They called it was something droids and whatever,
yeah.
and ships and weapons and, characters. And it was kind of like an essential guide to, I think, might have been it. The essential guide to, and it would give you like all these really detailed blueprints
and schematics of stuff.
Yeah, schematics of like, how a lightsaber works or where the bathroom is in the Millennium Falcon. Or,
right.
It was just stuff like that. And the thing that was cool about it was it would, and then of course it had a bunch of stuff in there that would expand the story. So it actually deepened your understanding of all these things.
Right.
And the visual dictionary obviously replaced that.
Yeah, the visual dictionary is a more broad, just kind of wide sweeping thing.
Well, they're also based on specific movies too.
Yeah, they're based on the ones that pretty much have already been released for the most part.
Yeah, but
depending on
you have
the current one, like the one that's from Last Jedi, I guess.
I remember for Christmas one year,
yeah, my grandmother got it for me this past Christmas.
Yeah, but what was it? Which one was it? Was it actually one of the visual, or was it some other companion thing?
It was the encyclopedia. It was like a visual encyclopedia, but basically...
But it wasn't the visual dictionary, the official of the movie?
No, it wasn't. Okay. No, it was just kind of like an overarching kind of thing. Like they would cover like Sith and Jedi, but they wouldn't talk about like, okay.
All right. So it was just kind of another, it's kind of
like weapons in Star Wars lore, and they would kind of show like,
we have a friend, Juliet. She gave me that one, what was it? It was some like thing about species on,
right? Yeah,
all the different aliens,
planets and
that was like kind of cool.
Yeah,
and it was actually a pretty cool thing. And so they do have a lot of those. But the visual dictionary, though, thing that's cool about that, they'll take it from each of the movies, and not only do they give you like information on some of the characters and things like that, they even go into the production of the movie. What took place behind the scenes, things like that.
Yeah, so definitely, guys, if you want to, check that out, it's out now.
Is it out now?
I think so. It's either out now or it'll be out.
I was gonna say I don't think it
pretty soon.
Yeah, I know they released the pictures of it and they showed it. I would imagine it's probably gonna be released around the time. It might be released just before the Rise of Skywalker.
Maybe.
It's
I think it might be before then.
Well, because here's the thing that's kind of funny about that too. I've noticed that they're trying to release a bunch of things to
leading up
really generate the excitement. Like of course I think they actually released the first novel. You know how they do Journey 2? Mm-hmm. I think the Journey to the Rise of Skywalker, I think they've released the first book that has to do with that. Because, there's so many books once again now I want to read. I want to read Queen Shadow. We've been, we've been giving our Amazon affiliate link to that book for a while. I haven't even read it yet. I need to finish Alliances. I want to read. No, it's not called Betrayal. It's called Thrawn Treason. That's what it's called.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I keep messing that up for some reason.
Betrayal,
like last
treason,
week,
mutiny.
I was calling it Betrayal, and it's like, but in the show notes, I called it by its rightful name. But, I want to read that, and that's going to be out in a few days. Although, actually, I think it's released the day this podcast goes out. Okay. So it's out now. And then there's like a couple other books that, have come out recently that I'm like, oh, man, that would actually be really cool to check out, so, yeah, like Daryl said, you know what, go out and check it out when they release it, and, let us know what you guys think. What do you want to see in this book? Anything in particular? What about the Knights of Ren? What do you guys think of that?
Yeah.
What'd you think of the design? All right, what do we got next?
All right, so this is a story that really kind of grabbed me. Kevin Smith from Jay and Silent Bob, Strikes Back.
Yeah, he's like a famous director. He's directed, the Jay and Silent Bob movies. He actually, I believe, wrote the Scream movies. Or at least directed them or something like that.
Yep, he's a huge Star Wars fan. And
yeah, he's always on the set, especially anytime JJ does anything.
Mm-hmm. Now, unfortunately, he had a heart attack and it kind of put him out of commission for a minute. And JJ, of course, being the guy that he is, reached out. I was like, man, you got to come out. You got to get better so you can come out to the set, man, and see the cool stuff that we're doing for Rise of Skywalker. And, as he started to improve, of course, he hits up JJ's like, hey, man, were you serious? So he's like, yeah, man, come on out. So basically, Kevin got himself together. He went out to the set. And that particular day, they weren't letting him kind of get to the set. But then JJ kind of came out and said, hey, look, the only reason why I'm not letting you on set is because this is the last shot.
Oh, yeah, he was basically talking about, like, do you really want to see this?
He's like, you don't. He's like, you really
want to see this in the theater.
Yeah, you want to see this in the theater. You don't want to ruin it for yourself right now. And normally he was just like, well, of course, now I really want to see this now. But he's like, dude, it's going to melt your mind. And then on top of that, so not only did JJ say it, but then like the guys on the set who were actually shooting the scene, they all came out and they were like, yeah, man, you don't want to see this now. You got to see this in the theater. And so that was the thing that made him say, okay, you know what? I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait. I'm going to trust him on this, and I'm going to wait. So my question to you is, like, what would you have done? Would you really want to have seen it then, or would you wait?
Honestly, if even the guys that were shooting it were telling me that,
yeah.
I'd wait. I'd wait because you only get one shot at experiencing these things, and it's like, first of all, it's not going to be that interesting behind the scene. All you're going to do is just know it. You know, what is this? This is like almost August, right? We're, 3-4 months away from the movie's release. It's like, big deal. Now, if this were like 2 years ago or something like that, maybe then. But, you know, if the director of the film and the people who are shooting it are like, dude, you trust me, you want to wait. Now, see, I had read that he actually went and saw it anyway.
No, he said, well, from what I think, he said he didn't go see it. He's like, well, you know what? I'm going to wait and see it. But he said that's what everybody kept telling him, that it was going to melt his mind. Like, this last shot is crazy. And I'm thinking like, well, I'm just wondering, like, what could it possibly be?
Exactly. And that was the thing that when I was reading that too, I was really intrigued. It's like,
yeah,
you know,
like, okay,
what could this possibly be?
Yeah.
You know, that it would actually melt your mind. I mean, the funny thing about it is I don't even know if I could really, you know, even speculate about it. Yeah,
exactly.
Like, I don't know.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, what could this possibly, I mean, like, I started
the only thing that they could do, maybe, see, the melting your mind thing is what it comes down to, though. Like, they could do something to where, like, they show Luke and Leia as Force ghosts together or something, but that wouldn't necessarily melt my mind.
Right. Yeah, I mean, part of me wonders if it has something to do with Vader.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. Like, maybe it's a Vader thing.
Yeah.
You know, like Anakin. I mean, I don't know. It's especially because it's the last shot.
Or maybe that's like when you finally find out who Rey is. Like, what if that's it?
That could be too.
Like, they wait to the very last shot of them, and then you finally realize
Rey is Palpatine or something, you know.
Or
she's the one laughing the Palpatine laugh, and
some weird thing. Yeah, then
it's almost like some Scooby Doo thing. They take off her mask, Emperor Palpatine. You know, I mean, it's just like I can't figure out what it would be.
Yeah,
but my feeling is it's got to have something to do with either Rey, Palpatine, Luke, or Vader.
Yeah.
I don't even think it has anything to do with Kylo.
No.
Because there's enough Kylo stuff out there. Like, his story is out there enough that I don't think anything would melt your mind. Yes, if we find out that Rey is like some crazy thing that we didn't even know, you know, or something, or, you know, she's related to somebody, or maybe she does something crazy.
Yeah.
You know, because even that whole thing that Luke did at the end of The Last Jedi, I mean, it was super cool, but it didn't necessarily melt my mind, really.
Well, I remember that thing, I think it was a video game where, like, you know, you can you use the Force to pull a Star Destroyer out of space or out of orbit or something. I mean, that would kind of melt my mind, dude. Like, if you just see that.
Yeah, like, that would be cool. Or, you know, because another thing they did, too, was I remember, I don't know if it was Luke or Yoda or somebody, they'd, like, actually shifted a planet out of...
Yeah.
You know, I remember imagining a scene, you know, where, like, they create another Death Star and it fires its laser, and a Jedi actually puts up his hand and absorbs the laser and then repels it back to the Death Star. That would be cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, okay.
That would be something that would definitely melt my mind.
Like, if Rey almost becomes like this Force god, almost like Luke was, or something like that. Like, even more powerful than Luke or something.
Right, and does something, like, ridiculous.
Yeah. Those are the only things I could think of.
Those are the things that, but I mean, it's kind of like, other than that, though, you know? I mean, what else could really melt your mind?
Yeah. but I guess we got to wait till December.
But I will say this, so, if you really start factoring things in, I mean, let's just bring all the evidence into light. First, you have all the cast being like super excited and blown away. Mm-hmm. You have, what was it, Kerry Russell that was like crying because the script, just like touched her that much. You have Oscar Isaacs, who had basically said that this movie is just like absolutely ridiculously good. Yeah,
Daisy Ridley's been going like on this whole rampage about how crazy this thing is.
And now, you get this whole thing, like this mind-melting scene is the last scene. So it's kind of like, it's all shaping up to say, hey, we're going to forget all about
The Last Jedi.
All the Last Jedi stuff that happened, the divisiveness or maybe the box office failure of Solo or something, because think about it. By the time that we see this movie, we're going to be fresh off of seeing The Mandalorian.
Yep.
So, this is going to be a really cool winter for everybody.
Yes.
It's actually going to help me get over the fact that, Michigan winters are no joke these days.
Yes,
so,
Lord.
If I have to trudge out in the snow and, and work and do all this other stuff, it's like, this is going to get me through, people.
Right. I wonder how many times we're going to end up seeing this.
Yeah.
Especially if it's like going to be like this good.
Yeah, because, we
didn't see Last Jedi that many times.
Not that many times. No, it was...
Not like we did Force Awakens.
No.
Or Rogue One.
Even Rogue One, yeah. Even Solo. Solo, I only saw it twice.
Right.
I think I saw The Last Jedi 3 times. 2 or 3 times. Maybe it was only twice.
Yeah, I think I only saw it in theaters maybe like twice.
Yeah, because usually I take my parents and they didn't see. The Last Jedi was the first movie that they didn't actually see. It was the first Star Wars movie they didn't see in the theater. It was even Solo, my mom saw it. My dad didn't. My dad still hasn't seen it. It's just one of those things where, I think it would just be a really cool experience to, see this movie and have everybody just go like psycho over it. All right, well, I think we're getting ready to, put away the drinks and get ready to head out of the cantina. But what about you guys? What do you think? What do you think this last scene is going to be that's going to melt our minds? And which character do you think it's going to focus on? Let us know in the comment section of our Facebook and Twitter, or, of course, you can post pictures on Instagram and, let us know there. You can also pretty much go to our website, and pretty soon we're actually going to have a separate YouTube channel for the podcast. We're going to be bringing back the video. So, right now it's on my Eric Vansel Media channel, and I just been basically putting a really cool thumbnail on all these podcasts so you guys can watch them on YouTube. But soon we're going to launch a head-to-head Star Wars podcast YouTube channel, and then we're going to start actually making videos. Besides a video version of this podcast, you're also going to see some other shows that we're going to do. So keep on the lookout for that. All right, what do we got next?
Our next segment is Duel of the Fates. All right, so this week, the question is, Count Dooku versus Darth Maul. Whose lightsaber is more effective?
Yeah, so at first I was kind of like, whose lightsaber is more? What kind of a weird... But then I started thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, Maul's got the double-bladed one.
Right.
And then, of course, Dooku has that curved hilt because it's more of a... Whatever that... I mean, the reality is it was really a tribute to the actor, with a swashbuckling type of a thing. But it is kind of an interesting thing. And for me, I would think that the answer is it would depend on who's wielding it. For instance, if you have somebody like Rey who fights with a staff, then the double-bladed lightsaber would be effective because essentially the same moves that you make with a staff, you can make with a double-bladed lightsaber.
Right.
Somebody who's a little bit more acrobatic, like Maul, that definitely, I think, helps. Whereas with Dooku, he's got more of this, like, classic sword style that we see in all the classic Hollywood movies because, of course, it's Christopher Lee, and that's why, they did that. And I mean, the in-universe explanation, if I remember correctly, is it had something to do with Dooku's fighting style.
Yeah.
You know, and that's generally one of the things that I think is cool, even though I don't exactly know how much of it was George Lucas actually thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not, considering he originally wrote lightsabers to be like heavy and unwieldy.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do like about the evolution of the lightsaber and lightsaber combat is the fact that they started to do this whole thing where the Jedi and Sith, presumably, actually create lightsabers that fit their fighting style and their personalities.
Yeah.
Which, you know, makes sense because, I mean, you know, if you're fighting for your life, you definitely want
something you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and, you know, instead of like a standard.
And it's going to give you the advantage, whatever that may be.
Well, and the other thing that I like, too, a lot of fans initially didn't really like this, and of course it made its first appearance in Rebels, but the whole idea that the crystal actually responds to the person that's, you know, wielding that. So, you know, that's what determines the lightsaber color.
Yep.
I actually thought that was a really cool addition to the lore.
Yeah, me too. I think for me, to answer that question, I think it depends on whom you're fighting. The reason I say that is, so being a martial artist myself, like my primary weapon when I did use them was a staff or a bow. Well, that's great. That's a great weapon for if you're encountering multiple people, such as what Darth Maul had to do when he fought Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. And it does afford Maul to have a little trickery. I mean, you could do it with any lightsaber, but I think in his case, because, you know, you can kind of surprise someone. If you only have one side ignited, you might forget that there's another side that hasn't been ignited, and you can use that to your advantage. But I think Dooku's, because his style was more of a fencing style.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I think that overall, I would go with Dooku's. And I know everybody, I mean, don't get me wrong, like, Maul is fun to watch. But I think when you talk about being effective, I think Dooku's is more effective simply because of his style. His particular fighting style is a little bit more, it is more effective because it's less movement.
But now you're talking about fighting styles.
Well, but that's indicative of the weapon, though, because it's like...
Well, and that's why I'm saying that if you gave Dooku's lightsaber to Maul, it wouldn't be very effective because it wouldn't match his fighting style. Yeah. That's why my whole thing is you can't, I mean, the answer is both, really, because, you know, you would almost have to say, like, okay, you would almost have to phrase a question like, because they're so personalized to their fighting styles, you would almost have to say, like, does Dooku's saber connect with his fighting style as well as Maul's saber connects with his?
Yeah.
That's about the only way that you can really compare these. Because, see, that's, and what's kind of cool about this is that they're very unique lightsabers. Like, if we had just taken, like, the more standard lightsaber, like, say, Luke's or something, and compared it, you know, then you can go,
like that, yeah. You
know, then I would actually choose that because, you know, those can adapt to multiple fighting styles.
Well, I mean, I think Dooku's can. I mean, I think they both can. I think it's just...
Well, yeah, I mean, you could technically use the double-bladed one as a single-bladed lightsaber, and I mean, it kind of... Other than the fact that you'd have this like crazy long handle, though, you know, you could adapt it.
I think if I'm not, I think his could actually detach. I think I read somewhere that he could actually take it apart.
Well, Obi-Wan certainly did that for him.
Well, yeah.
You know, when he chopped it in half.
Yeah. Definitely.
First he chops his lightsaber in half, and
then he chopped him in half.
But you're right,
because when I think it still was ignited on the side that Darth Maul was using. It still was working. Yeah,
but exactly.
So it's not like he...
Yeah, like it... And I think actually, was it Ahsoka or somebody else had one, and they just like turned it and unlocked, and then it became two.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you actually factor that in, then Maul's lightsaber becomes more effective because you can actually unlock them, and now you got dual lightsabers. So it's... But then again... that would really be making it more versatile, maybe not necessarily more effective. I mean,
yeah, I think Dooku's is more effective just because, no pun intended, gets to the point. I think it's more designed to...
Well, it's definitely designed for a specific fighting style, more so than Maul's even.
Yeah, but I think his is just...
But then again, I mean, even with the multiple combat thing, I mean, look at Rey. She would fight individuals with the staff and...
Well, see, yeah, and she has a single blade because she has Luke's.
Yeah, which is really surprising.
Yeah.
Everybody thought that she was going to build a double-bladed one.
Yeah, especially by Rise of Skywalker.
Oh, yeah.
And who says she still might?
True. I mean,
we only seen her that one shot, but that could be the early part of the movie. She loses it or something, and then...
Well, I'm really wondering what's going to happen because...
to complete her training, she might build one, and then that's it.
Yeah, and I mean...
That would be sweet.
Well, but then again, haven't they been saying, and hasn't it been implied that she essentially rebuilt Luke's saber, which was damaged?
Yeah, she did.
And that's the one she's wielding in the trailer for The Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, we to which we don't know if that's, no, I can't say that because of the Vanity Fair pictures. Because of Vanity Fair pictures, there's a shot with her and Kylo fighting on those rocks and whatnot.
Oh, right.
And she has.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, maybe that might have been a dream or a flashback or something like that.
Well,
but
right. But I mean, yeah, exactly. But I mean, she has it.
Every shot we've seen with her in the movie.
I'm pretty sure that they actually, what am I trying to say? I think they confirmed it. I think they confirmed that she rebuilds Luke's saber.
Mm.
I mean, who's to say that she doesn't, build another one? I mean, when you bring up the whole fight on the rocks thing, unless all this stuff happens earlier in the movie and then she builds one. And they're saving all the really cool stuff because, that's another thing, too, is that we don't know a lot of times where in the movie, for all we know, all this stuff happens in the first act. And then,
yeah, exactly.
The rest of the movie remains safely anonymous. Well, what about you guys? Whose saber do you guys think is more effective? If you got anything out of this discussion at all, you guys can, no pun intended, duke it out.
Oh.
Write us at Head to Head SW on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter and let us know in the comments section. I'd really be curious on you guys' thoughts on this. In fact, going back to Master and Apprentice a little bit, it's kind of, you get a little bit of an insight with Dooku on that one too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still time, you guys. You still have 2 weeks. You have 2 weeks from this episode, which is going to come out on Monday. So you have 2 weeks from this Monday to buy Master and Apprentice from our Amazon affiliate link. Read it. It's not that long of a book, although you wouldn't know as long as it took us to get through it. But, I read it actually fairly quickly. So you guys have some time, pick up the book, read it, and join in on our discussion. I would love to see a lot of comments from you guys. All right, what's next?
Our next segment is From a Certain Point of View.
Ooh, our main topic.
Yep. And this week, the big question is Rey the Last Jedi, or has the other been here the whole time?
Well, who are we talking about? Who's the other?
Your twin sister. No,
yeah, exactly.
No, so
find out Broom Kid's like her little brother or something. He was just left on some other planet.
No, but people have been pointing out, and there's been this huge rumor that Finn, of course, is the other one.
Oh, right. I forgot about that one.
And, there's...
Mace Windu's grandson, right?
Well, the reason why they bring up Finn is, and it's highly plausible.
It's FN 2187.
Well, and that brings up my first point, is the fact that Kylo automatically knew who it was. Like, who's the rogue trooper. And then there was this point where Kylo actually turned and looked and stared at Finn, like during that whole scene where they were shooting whatnot. They were kind of doing that raid on that village, and it was just kind of like, all right, he's always kind of been
Of course, he did have the blood on his helmet. That kind of, made him a little easier to identify.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you don't know if he didn't fire anything, though. I mean, that's just what I'm saying. It's just like he automatically knew. And granted, yes, we know he can do the whole, I don't know, I was about to say a mind meld, but like the whole like mind probe thing. But I mean, he knew that Phasma was about to tell him anyway.
I don't know. I think people are reaching when it comes to this whole. I mean, I'm not saying that Finn isn't force sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could very well be. Because I know they were also pointing at the Finn-Kylo duel.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the Force Awakens that...
Yeah.
I mean, but still, that could be explained away. I just think that, it's funny because on one hand, a lot of the fans are complaining about the fact that everybody's related to everybody and, everybody... They'll say all this stuff, but then they'll turn around and they're trying to make everybody... Oh, well, this guy's got to be a Force user, and this guy's got to be this, and, he's secretly the other that, and he's probably related to this person. And it's like, you guys, I think, are reading too much into this.
But I think if Finn was another, I mean, I think that would be cool.
Oh, I'm not saying that it would be bad. I wouldn't complain. I mean, like I've often said, on this show, like a half a zillion times, if you just give me a good story, I'm pretty much down for just about anything.
Mm-hmm. But I think with his story, I think it kind of leans more to it because I often wonder too, like, okay, he's been like this whole sanitation guy. So how did he end up in the field?
Well, see, this is the whole reason why I think it would diminish the coolness of what they've brought up so far if they make Finn some sort of a Force user. Maybe not a full-blown Jedi or anything, but like a Force user. Because one of the things that I thought was really cool about Finn, that a lot of fans thought was cool, was we actually get to see the origins of a Stormtrooper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, the flip side of that argument is, hey, if you could actually see a Force-sensitive Stormtrooper, that'd be kind of cool, too.
Well, yeah.
And who knows? Maybe that's where the Sith Troopers come in. But I mean, the whole point, though, is that what I thought made that whole storyline cool was that you got to see how did Stormtroopers become Stormtroopers. Very similar to the Jedi, actually. They're taken from their family, probably by Force, though.
Yeah.
That's the difference. But, I mean, it would take away the honesty and purity of that storyline.
Well, I mean, I think it just adds to it because he's taken away and he doesn't really get a chance. I mean, he doesn't even have a name.
Yeah, but I mean, out of all the Stormtroopers, you mean we just happen to be following the one guy that's, you know what I mean? It's like, it would just be cool if he was a Stormtrooper. He decides, you know what? I'm really not about what these other guys are about. The cool thing about Finn's storyline is that all his life he was brought up to think that they're doing the right thing. This is what you're supposed to do. I have no other purpose in life but to do this. And then he finally gets to the point where he's high enough that he can get out there and be a Stormtrooper. And he's like, you know what? I don't think this is good.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what would make it extra cool is the fact that, like, okay,
what, the Force is kind of guiding him or something?
That, or it's the fact that, okay, he's been on this
like a head-to-head thing.
Well, this is head-to-head.
It's from a certain point of view. Well, I guess that is a different point of view. All right.
So, but I just look at it from the standpoint of, okay, you got this kid. He has no name. He's been given a number like some, inmate or something like that. And then he's been trained to do all this stuff. And then he finally realizes, okay, this is not the life I want to live. There's something wrong about this, but he doesn't really know why. And
I mean, I guess you could say, well, that's what makes him different because the other ones wouldn't question this. But again, one of the cool things about what the prequels did, where I think they actually enhanced the story of the original trilogy, was the fact that, of course, we'd always heard about the Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then we got to see it.
All right.
But it also gave us an insight about how Palpatine decided. First, he went through like this whole evolution. Like, okay, he thought droids would actually be the ultimate army. Mm-hmm. Then he saw the weakness in it. So then he had clones raised up. Well, then he kind of saw the weakness in that. So then he decided to just use normal
citizens,
human beings or whatever to do it. So, I mean, it's almost like, that would, if we did that for Finn, it was almost like, well, you have to be special or some sort of force user or something to question the fact that, this isn't right or whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
why can't he just be a guy, you know what I mean, that just kind of looked around and was like, you know what, this is something that's been all my life and it's wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a part of it, but I think what will make it really cool is the fact that he's been running from his destiny that he doesn't even know what it is. That's what I'm saying. Like the whole time we looked at Finn and we like, okay.
Well, again, and I mean,
kind of misused him. Yeah. He hasn't been really doing anything.
Well, that's true. But here's the thing, though. I mean, when I say that, though, because, and I'll preface it by saying that if it turns out that he is some secret Jedi somewhere, okay. I mean, as long as it works and the story is cool, whatever, it's another one.
Mm-hmm.
But what's so brilliant about this story is the fact that there's so many rich storylines you can get out of this, because here's a normal citizen who actually came to this conclusion on his own. There's a lot of, the whole tug of war.
You like the humanity aspect.
Yeah, there's the humanity aspect of it. He doesn't have to be a Jedi. He doesn't have to be... he's just a normal citizen that, like us...
decided to rebel.
Decided, like, you know what? The way that this whole thing that I've been raised to do is wrong. And, of course, at first, it's not like he has any kind of righteous indignation. He's just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. I'm running away. And where I felt that they misused the whole... not just underutilized, but actually misused his character... is the fact that that's what they should have focused more on. They did it to a point, though, where he's like, again, he's confronted now with, okay, the right thing to do is to stay and help these guys and fight. But what I really want to do is get away from these guys because they're super powerful, and I don't think we're going to win.
Well, I'm just kind of curious as what made him so attached to Rey. I mean, aside the fact that, okay, at one point...
she's hot. You heard him go, hey, you got a boyfriend or whatever?
I get that.
Tell you what makes he wants to be attached to Rey.
Ergo the Force. None of them.
Yeah, right.
But no, I mean, what I'm saying is that, okay, yeah, he was attracted to it, but then, okay, he got kind of put in the friend zone. And then, but he's still like, okay, I gotta go save her. Like, he's so hell-bent on saving somebody he just met. Like, he just met this chick.
Well, I mean, the thing that I do find interesting about that part of it, if we're talking about, like, this sudden, almost protected
devotion. Like, he has this sudden devotion to her, and it's just like...
yeah, and it's weird because it's like, dude, she's actually saved you from stuff. Like,
yeah.
First of all, she beats you in combat.
Right, exactly.
Then she actually, like, helps you, and it's kind of like, okay, why do you feel, trust me, she's got this.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. And it...
maybe he feels like he owes her or something. I don't know.
Probably. I mean, he just grew to really like her. I mean, first he was romantically attracted to her, but then it was kind of like a deeper friendship kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And I think he's just loyal. I don't know if it's just pure devotion as much as it is just also loyalty. Yeah. But again, it is something that they can use. All I'm saying is I just hope that it isn't, why does everybody in the Star Wars universe have to be attached to each other in some sort of a weird supernatural connected way? Why can't it just be
biological or the Force?
Yeah, why can't it just be like, okay, there's this guy that, and you know what? When you actually read a lot of the new canon novels, you really understand the brilliance of that kind of storytelling, because particularly Lost Stars, you had two people that grew up on the same planet, and they actually fell in love and had a relationship. Then they decided that wasn't really working out, so they became really good friends, kind of like a Finn and Rey thing in a sense. But then, they get separated off. They both join the Empire. But then one of them, the guy, actually gets disillusioned. He starts to see a lot of the evil things that the Empire are doing, and it's really how he's slowly going, I can't do this anymore. Then he ends up joining the rebellion. And when he joins the rebellion, it puts him on the opposite side of her. Now, neither one of these guys are Jedi, Force users, anything of the sort. They are completely normal citizens. And virtually everybody that reads the books will tell you that's one of the best of the new canon novels.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Now, part of it, too, is that, you know, you actually get to see some of the original trilogy stuff through their eyes, and you get to know a lot of these characters that ended up actually blowing up on the first Death Star. So it really does put a big spin on it. But that's the point is that you can actually have somebody who's not related to, you know, Luke or trained by Palpatine or whatever, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it'll just be, because he's a sleeper, he's the person you don't expect. I think that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, but see, that would be cheap storytelling, is to just go for, because you don't expect them. You know, I mean, you're better off doing it again. If they actually do it that way, but then they do it with a really cool storytelling device and it actually fits and it's cool, then I'm like, all right. But there would be a certain part of me that would go, really, guys? You know, I mean, what's next? Is Poe gonna discover that he's like some Force
Well, that's what I'm
user?
saying. Like, you had people like, you know, you had Poe, you had Holdo, you had people who were, you know, okay, fighting the good fight, and they didn't have Force abilities or anything. Just like Han. You know, Han didn't have any Force abilities, but he was Han Solo. Needed.
That's because George Lucas actually wrote those original stories, and you don't. That's my thing. Is the fact that this is what happens sometimes when you get people, because as we all know, George Lucas's direction, probably not a good idea. Doing screenplay as far as dialogue, also definitely not a good idea. As a storyteller, though, guy's spot on. You know, and it would just be nice to have one of the main guys not fall into the trap of being this, like, because thus far that's what they've done. It's kind of like you said, like in the original trilogy, the Jedi are all but extinct because it's part of the overall story. So it just depends on what they want to do. Now, I will say that in the old expanded universe, which is now Legends, they did do this whole thing where, you know, you had characters like Kip Duran, of course, the Solo kids, Jason Solo, Jaina Solo, all that. And, you know, it made sense that they were Force users. But the cool thing is they had different degrees of abilities, and they started talking about how does Han Solo really deal with this entire family of Jedi that he has, and he's completely on the outside of them.
Yeah. It's kind of like that whole Smallville thing where you got like
exactly
Clark, he's from a whole nother planet, but his dad is trying to teach him how to use his powers.
And it's kind of like
how do you do this?
You know, or just the problems that he runs into. And it's like, well, I don't know. How would I know?
Yeah.
You're basically an alien, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could put you in a Letterman jacket and send you off to school, but fact is you're from another planet, and that's
right.
That's it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if Finn's a Jedi or not.
Well, I guess we have to wait till
The Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Not The Rise of Finn.
Yeah.
Well, that was in The Force Awakens.
Nice.
So, what do you guys?
What do you guys
think? Is Rey truly the last Jedi, or the first of a new batch of Jedi? You know, do you guys think that Finn's Force sensitive? I mean, you know, we'll see. We'll see if Patrick sides with me on this one. I remember when I posted something on Instagram, and I'm like, yeah, man, I'd be interested to get your thoughts or whatever, because you and I were debating something, and he was like, yeah, I don't really agree with Daryl on this one, and he gave like this whole paragraph as to why. I think I sent you to it or something, but, you know, we'll see. We'll see if we can keep this, you know, if I got this winning streak going or not. All right, well, now we're going to go to our final segment, which, of course, is one of the ones that I always get to announce, and it's called Clear Your Mind. This is where we answer your questions. All right, who we got first?
All right, we have Mark Majeski, and he asked, do we really need Sith troopers? I think it's just a way to drum up sales and get our hopes up for something cool, and they do nothing with them. What say you?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's probably a marketing ploy. But, I mean, look,
He's probably thinking about Phasma. That's probably
yeah.
That's what he's
But I
thinking
mean,
about.
look, you could say that about any of them. Well, almost any of them. The Snowtroopers. I mean, really, the Snowtroopers were the first of the different ones. And, you know, everybody thought they were cool. And really all they did was raid a base for a few minutes and fire at the Falcon, and that was it.
Now, let me ask you something, since, you know, you were growing up during this time when these movies were actually released. So when Empire and Return of the Jedi were released, did they kind of put those into the forefront? Like, hey, guys, we got these snow troopers and scout troopers.
Kind of the scout troopers, but then again, though, the scout troopers did actually more in the movie than...
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they were more prominently featured, actually, as characters. In fact, they were almost used more than the Stormtroopers were, in a sense. The Snowtroopers, they did make a big deal about it as far as, like, the toys go.
Right, that's what I'm saying, yeah.
But not really heavily, no. It was just kind of like a new trooper. Because really, if you look at the Clone Wars, and then you even look at some of the other sequel trilogy, I mean, I think it was Rogue One that we were introduced to, like, Sand Troopers and Death Troopers, and, you know, and you got to see them a little bit. I think people are overreacting as far as saying, oh, we don't need this. It's... You know, it's a different type of trooper. I mean, they even had, like, underwater troopers. I forgot what they were called, like scuba troopers or something. I mean...
Sounds about right.
You know, I mean, it stands to reason that they would have, like, a different...
Yeah, I mean, I think that the new Sith troopers, I mean, they'll probably have their, you know, 2 or 3 minutes in the sun. But I will say, like, the cool ones, my personal favorite ones actually are the Death Troopers from Rogue One. I mean, because they actually played more of a, I mean, you saw them more. They were like opening scene of the movie. And then, of course, they were on that platform when the Resistance came into.
Yeah.
I mean, Rebellion started.
For the most part, though, they just had a more of a presence. They actually reminded me kind of the Royal Guards. And
then, of course, they really had their presence felt like during the actual battle of Scarif when they were like, you know, and they were accurate, man. Those guys.
Yeah. And that was just it. And I mean, it depends. You know, I'm leaning more toward the fact that the Sith Troopers are going to do something. You know, Mark, if you're actually really curious, you should listen to last week's episode where I actually...
Yeah.
It's the whole title of the episode.
Yeah, actually, I was wanting to tell you, you know, great job on last week's episode, man.
Well, thanks, man. It's still not the same, though.
I know.
You know, I should have said it actually at the beginning of the show, but it's good to have you back after, you know, your little mishap.
Yep.
But, I mean, I did the whole show on Sith Troopers.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if you really want to go in depth, but, I mean, basically as kind of a summary, I do think that they're going to be a little bit more than the typical window dressing that we see in the movies. You know, I think that they have something to do with Palpatine. Whether or not they're guarding his body, or maybe they're somehow, obviously they're serving the Sith, you know, because of the interesting thing about it is this is the first time in this trilogy that we've actually had mention of the Sith.
You know what I think might happen? I'm just making this up and throwing it out there, but...
Well, you can. I mean, you weren't able to weigh in on last week, so it's kind of like part deux.
Well, I think, with Kylo, I think he's going to elevate himself to the Sith.
Well, see, I thought about that too, but the thing is that I don't necessarily think that he is. I mean, he could, but I don't think the Sith Troopers are going to be like his thing. He's got the Knights of Ren, which of course he has to fight.
Well, I mean, I think what's in the beginning, I think they're going to be just part of his regime as far as him kind of creating his own entity within the First Order. Because with him being that's kind of because he's technically the Supreme was not the
Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yeah, Supreme. Okay, I want to say
he's
Supreme
like the
Chancellor,
Supreme Leader Ren. But I mean, here's the thing though. It's like even with all of his worship of his grandfather and stuff like that, they never claimed to be Sith.
Who?
Snoke or Kylo.
No, but I think that's what I'm saying. I think that I think what Kylo's trying to do is reinstill that fear back into everybody. Like, okay, I'm a Sith Lord. I'm the grandson of Vader. I think he's really just trying to embrace
so
that.
It could be maybe that Snoke was like, no, you can't be a Sith. We're something else. Or whatever.
He's kind of
he's
being
gone.
held
So
back.
it's like, screw it. I'm a Sith now.
Yep. And then he might find some holocrons or some crap and think,
like, get those Stormtrooper outfit, paint them red. You're Sith troopers now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, he probably has the mentality like, who's going to check me? Who's going to stop me? And I think that's where the Palpatine comes in. Because I think that's when Palpatine comes in and spanks him like, boy, no, you're not.
Well, unless he's working through him the whole time. And I mean, that
could be true.
Because we don't really know. And that's why, I don't know. I find it odd that the Sith troopers are being released or being brought up in the same movie that Palpatine is probably back. Mm-hmm. I can't help but think that that's no accident. I don't necessarily think that here's what I think happens. I may have said this last week. What would be ultra hilarious is if I contradict myself. But hey, I've had a week to think it over, guys. Yeah. If that's the case, just covering myself now.
Yeah, I was about to say, loophole.
So, yeah, right. Let's just dive through this little loophole, shall we? But here's what I think is going to happen. I think what it is that I'm leaning now towards the fact that Kylo is going to be redeemed. I wasn't before, but I have been. Just, as things have been transpiring, we've been learning more about the movie and just what actually makes sense from a storytelling perspective. I think what's going to happen is somehow Kylo's going to maybe realize something, or maybe if Palpatine comes and messes things up, he finds himself at odds. But either way, I think it's significant that he's fighting the Knights of Ren, and there's a reason for that. And that would make sense. Another thing that would make sense is if somehow Palpatine came in and usurped his whole authority, and it's not necessarily that he's good, but it's sort of like the enemy of my enemy thing. So maybe he's not redeemed, but he's kind of like, okay, I got to team up with you guys to defeat this guy.
Right.
So, I mean, I just think that the Sith troopers are popping up in the same movie that Palpatine is coming back is more than coincidental.
Definitely.
Now, it could be. It could be that maybe Kylo's, you got to wonder, though, is he going to be Darth something? I mean, if he's a Sith.
Yeah, Darth Ren.
And who knows, maybe Plagueis there's so many variables to this movie, and frankly, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Now, as far as the part of Mark's question where he says, is this going to get our hopes up and then they're going to do nothing? Well, it kind of depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Phasma made sense to get your hopes up. The Sith troopers, to me, are no different than the scout troopers, the snow troopers, the sand troopers, any of these other guys. They're going to serve a purpose. I am kind of excited about them, but only because of the bigger picture that they might play in the story. So we'll have to see. If not, they're really cool. I mean, red's my favorite color, and they're red, so.
All right.
Who do we got next?
Next question comes from Tony Fontaine. And the question is, with so many questions still unanswered, is JJ smart for bringing in new characters, or should he answer and expand the characters we have?
Well, I mean, I think that you can't help but bring in... I mean, if you think about it, even if you look at your own life, a lot of times, let's just say there's some kind of big crisis in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Invariably, new people come into your life and some people go out of your life. It kind of happens, our circumstances change. Yeah, it's just kind of the way life works, right? So I don't necessarily think that him bringing in new characters is a mistake. Now, I do agree, though, that if he starts to try to bring in too many new characters and develop them, that would be a mistake.
Yeah. I think that's her. I think her biggest thing is, because we all know that this has to wrap up the entire saga and there are still so many questions. So it's like, if you bring in new people, you have to give background.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Batman problem.
Exactly.
You know?
Where
it's like, great, now I got to get the origin story of this guy.
Exactly. Where if you can just actually just focus on, okay, answering the questions that we already have, and then, of course, expanding them to different depths.
Right. No new toys until you've picked up your other ones.
Exactly. So, I mean, I kind of understand.
Oh, I get it. It's just that, but my point is, though, is that you might need new characters in order to explain.
To get to that point.
Yeah.
To move the story to that point.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, think about it like this. You're tying up an entire saga. I mean, you could have said that about the prequel trilogy, honestly. You could have said, look, you got to explain the origin of all these people or how all this stuff came about. I don't want a million new characters. Yeah, you're going to have new people in there, obviously, because it's a populated world, but don't focus on anybody. Mm-hmm. But when they did focus on people, it actually answered questions. So I say that to say that they might have to bring in a new character to answer some questions. You know, like, for instance, when they brought in Maz Kanata, she can answer some questions. Now, they haven't done anything with her yet, but she did actually say that whole, you know, oh, that's a story for another time, and, you know, how did she get Luke's lightsaber? And
yeah.
Okay, by bringing her in and then developing her story, which I hope they do in 9, they could then answer a bunch of questions that we've had about what's been going on between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. You know, what happened with Luke? How did all this stuff? You know what I mean? It's like they could use new characters to actually advance and answer your questions. No, now on the other hand, it's kind of like, I would definitely agree with this, though, if they're bringing in a new character and then trying to develop them.
Right.
It's like, no, hold on now.
Yeah, we got enough. Especially when you still got, you know, people like Leia, you still got Lando, you still got, you know, those folks, plus, you know, everybody else, so.
Yeah, and I don't think, like, for instance, Lando coming in, I think that that's going to be more of a storytelling device in order to wrap up some other things. I don't think we're going to focus on him so much.
Right.
You know, as far as, you could even use Hodo as a perfect example, because they didn't really give us the origin of her, really. They used her to function in place of Leia, and that advanced the storyline. But we didn't really focus on her. You could really say the same thing about the one you hated, DJ.
Ugh.
Even though we hated the Canto Bight storyline,
yeah,
they basically used DJ as a device to carry that story over and further, you know, I guess deepen the whole Finn and Rose thing. You know, Rose even was brought in to pretty much bring Finn to the point to where it's like he finally decides, like, you know what, I got to commit to something. Mm-hmm. They gave a little bit of an origin, but not really. She was just the sister of the one chick that blew up in the beginning of the movie. Mm-hmm. Not really an origin, you know, or a super focus. So, you know, yeah, I would agree, but...
Well...
All right, well, I guess that's going to wrap up our show this week, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right, well... Like I said, we got some affiliate links, you know, for Amazon affiliate stuff in the show notes. Look, you guys are going to buy this stuff anyway. You might as well buy it through us and help us support our show. So, you know, be sure to look at some of the books or whatever that we got in there. And if there's other stuff that you want to get, you know, let us know. We'll put the links in that too. Also, be watching for our YouTube channel that's going to be coming up. And... with that, hit us up at Head to Head SW on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and, you know, let us know your thoughts about our show. And we'll see you guys next time. I'm Eric Vansel.
And I'm Daryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Head to Head SW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.